Hi, I'm Laura. I'm 42 and I'm from Paynton, Devon, and I'm a recovering addict. My childhood was good. Like, we had times where we had money and things were really good, but we had times when we didn't because we went through a recession and my dad kind of, his business, was taken and we lost our house and that. Um, but up until that, things were good, We used to just do normal things. There was like me, my brother, and my sister. We had a massive garden, and um, there are times in my childhood that I think, does that have anything to do with why like went on to do what I did? So, like for example, my mum and my dad, their relationship could be quite volatile. My dad was a little bit violent, things like that. And also, although like he gave us money, like if we needed things, he wasn't there like much as a dad. Like you couldn't really go to him with anything. Well, the first thing I would have tried would have been smoking pot. And I was quite young. I can remember I was um, with a friend, and her uncle was like a DJ. We was first or second year of secondary school, um, and yeah, I tried that. It was, I did it because they did it, you know, um, and I never did it a lot, or anything. And then I moved schools, and there was like a group of us, and all the lads in my year smoked pot quite a lot. And there were times that I did, but it never really agreed with me. Like we would go out and drink alcohol from like a young age. So like pretty young on, I was quite rebellious, and I was like sort of, I'm gonna try anything, I'm gonna do anything. I just wanted to be. I was like afraid to miss out, kind of thing. The first harder drug that I took was LSD, and I can remember taking that. Like I was about 14 when I took that. Again, it was like, it's something that I didn't, really enjoy that much, but all my friends and that were doing it. Um, and then, yeah, it did progress onto other things after that. Boredom, curiosity, peer pressure. Because obviously it starts off with one person, that's their idea. Yeah, and I look back now, and there was a few people in our group that didn't do that, and I think like they've gone on to do really well because they had that um, courage just to be different, which was at the time you don't see that. Like I'm older, and why is it to things like that now? But um, you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. It's not always the coolest thing. Do you know what I mean? And also, you feel that if you say no, everyone's going to notice you for saying no, but they don't. Because I look back now and no one said anything about, they might have said once, oh, how come you're not doing it? But they never like was secluded from the group for, do you know what I mean? Not taking it. So you get uppers and downers. So heroin would be a downer that makes you sleepy. Cocaine is an upper that makes you awake. So most of the drugs, apart from the benzos, like and sleeping tablets, methadone and heroin, are all uppers. So ecstasy, oh, I have took ecstasy as well. Ecstasy, amphetamine, cocaine, crack cocaine, they all make you feel very awake, but they've got slightly different feelings on top of that. So amphetamine is something that will make you feel awake. You want to chat a lot. You're quite up, but the come down on amphetamine is horrendous, really, really bad. Um, Cocaine is very expensive, and they used to say it's like a rich man's amphetamine. And that's like was never really around when we were kids. Like it was all like famous people that did cocaine. Nowadays, cocaine is rife everywhere, so bad. LSD is a weird one that makes you hallucinate. You laugh a lot, but you can feel quite paranoid um, and then crack cocaine, that's really expensive and that lasts 15 minutes. Yeah, so, and heroin, that can last quite a long time. That's will make you feel really sleepy, but you feel like everything's all right. You know, you could just be told something really bad and you've still got that level kind of emotion, you know? And at first it makes you feel like kind of wrapped in cotton wool, that your problems have gone away and that. Um, and methadone is a substitute for heroin, but you don't get the high with it, you know? It just makes you, because heroin will make you physically sick if you don't have it, like once you become addicted. And then Valium is one of those drugs that become popular in like the 60s, and they used to give it to housewives like in the war, because, and then they used to call it mommy's little helper, because they would be able to get on with life and do it, you know, it'd make you feel great. That it does, but they're really addictive, and yeah, massive problem. I think people that take drugs, it doesn't always have to be that there's something really bad. You know, like I've come across people that have been through really bad abuse and all that, and you could say, oh, I can see why they've took drugs. But I've come across people like that you think that, you know, but that everything was all right with them. So I think, like, it's just, what's hard is that you hit an age, which is usually like 14, 15, and you just want to do everything, like explore everything, you know? But it's learning, like, if there was more education about what it really meant to take drugs and stuff, I don't think kids would. I didn't know hardly anything about drugs when I started taking drugs. And I never knew that all my life nearly would be taken from the fact that I took drugs to start with. And, you know, it was just a constant, you know, not everyone that smokes pot is going to become a heroin addict. I'm not saying that, but there's always that risk. There's always a risk with drugs. It's not a safe thing. And some people say you can be recreational with it and just do it in parties. Maybe that's the case, but you still, if that's what you want to do, get some safety around it, you know? You can't stop people from taking drugs, but you can educate them on how to be safe. There are things you can do to, like, if you're, like, I would say to people, don't take drugs. That was what, you know, but if people said to me, like they did at that age, don't take drugs, I would do the opposite. A lot of kids are just like that. So if you can make something safer, you know, like always be with someone if you take drugs, that's a massive thing, because if something happens, there's always someone there. You know, like simple things like have water with you, and if you're gonna use something to take it with, make sure that that's clean. And you know, there's things like hepatitis and HIV that can come with all those things. But yeah, it's such a tricky thing to say. At the time, there are, when you first take them, you think, you know, like, oh, this is great, I'm having a great time. But it can always, unless you're like one of those really strong people that have, you know, take it a few times, and if you get something and you really like it, you know, like, and you're maybe going through a bad time, that can so easily become your crutch, and then you're using it all the time. So, you know, it can make you feel like that everything's good and that your problems are less, but they're not. You've actually just added a problem to you. When if you wrote like pros and cons, there's so many more cons than there are pros, you know. So I recognise for me that I was pushing all my friends away, and I just I kind of lost interest in life a bit. Everything was being affected by my drug use, and for someone taking heroin, it's a physical thing. I don't know, and there are a few other drugs that will make you physically withdraw, but most of it will be mentally. Like if it's ecstasy or amphetamine, like you're not physically addicted to it. But with heroin, you've got receptors, and it's the heroin hits the receptors. Without the heroin, the receptors sort of cry, and that's what makes you feel physically ill. But the mental side of it is probably harder than the physical. So I think if I was advising someone on the early stages of addiction, I would say, don't ever feel ashamed that you've got a problem, because it can happen to anyone. Find someone that you can talk to, anyone, even if you don't know them, just find someone. And don't feel like you failed if you don't get it right the first time. You know, like, it's better to get up and start again than to not try and get up. Because if you don't try and get up, you're just going to stay there. And that's when you know, you're just not in a good place. Oh, because addicts are dirty according to society, and, you know, they're like the scum. Do you know what I mean? So there's this idea of what an addict looks like, but that's not the case at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd be shocked if you get doctors who are addicts, you get solicitors. So try not to let that get to you. It is a lot better than it used to be, but people just seem to think that an addict is always going to steal from you, is always, you know, they are. If they turn out that they do steal and lie, just remember that they're someone's child, there's probably someone's brother or sister, and they wasn't born into society a bad person. They've become resourceful into, like, them. If they're addicted to something like heroin, it's like getting food for someone that's not, you know. They need it. They have to have it, and it's expensive. You've got to sort of do what you have to do, and it does turn you into not a nice person. I've done some really awful things that I'm not proud of at all, but like, it doesn't always mean that addiction means that, do you know what I mean, that personality is with it. Yeah, I'd like to think we could break the stigma by showing people that, you know, that it can affect anyone, and that, like, we're all human at the end of the day, and we all come into this earth the same way. It's a matter of choice, isn't it? We've all got choices to make, and you can turn around. Like, this is the thing, that if you're not an addict and you look at an addict, people will go, why can't they just sort themselves out? Like, what's wrong with them? But until they've like, it's like my mum, right, for example, she loves anaesthetic. She thinks that it's like a really relaxing feeling that you get put to sleep. And I said, but if you'd have ever took heroin, that would have probably, because you like the way that feels. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So people can be pulled for so many different reasons because their brain says, oh, I like that, you know. So yeah, that it's a weird one, really badly. I've got really bad mental health now from all the drugs I've taken. I can't work because of it. I'm a lot better than I was. But like, it's weird because I feel like at a stage where I should have been developing mentally, I was taking drugs instead. So it's almost like my brain didn't kind of develop properly. But there's the mental health, like, of it can lead to long-term depression and anxiety and that. But you've also got to kind of live with your decisions after you've done what you know, and that can, if you've got mental health already, it can make it worse. And like, I'm thankful that I'm at a much better place, you know. But what I will say as well is that there's this sort of chicken egg scenario with mental health, that do people take drugs because they've got mental health, or if they've got mental health and then they take drugs to help it? Do you see what I mean? I think it's a kind of roundabout situation, but if you've got mental health, you can feel like taking a drug's going to make you feel better. It makes it so much worse, you know, just in every way possible. That's without the actions of becoming an addict. Just by taking a drug will affect your brain and your mental health. Like, I've tried to kill myself before on a few occasions because I was, you know, mentally in such a dark place. So I feel like that it takes so much time to recover from that, health-wise. Yeah, I've got like a huge scar from where I had an ulcer because I used to inject. So my veins, I've got no veins. It's really embarrassing to talk about this, but people need to know. Like, you probably wouldn't think it if you saw me in the street that I don't know, maybe I do look like an addict. I hope I don't anymore, but yeah, I've had hepatitis C. I had to go through treatment. Thank God that, you know, it does affect. Like, I've got friends that have lost their leg. I've got like 3 people that I can come up with like that have lost their leg. So I'm not, you know, it's hard because that's people that have gone into full-blown addiction. And when you talk about drugs, you've got to consider the whole spectrum, you know. But even if you take ecstasy and amphetamine, it can affect your heart. I've got a heart murmur as well now. My teeth are terrible because of the drugs. And that can happen through any drug. The teeth get really affected. It's just you're putting poison in you, you know, so it's not gonna look nice, do you know what I mean? So I have been through rehab a couple of times. So I was 19 when I first went to rehab, and I was not ready to give up drugs, if I'm honest. It hadn't, people say about your rock bottom, and I hadn't kind of got to that. So it was an experience, and I used some skills from it, but then when I was 26, I went to a Christian rehab, and I was there I ended up getting a job there. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, I had to, it was so strict. Like, you can't smoke, you can't swear, you can't talk about worldly things. You can't watch the TV, you can't listen to the radio. You only read Bibles, and so it's full on. It is really full on, and your day is structured like to the minute. And I wanted to go home nearly every day, but it's that choice. When you've got a choice, it's like, no, I'm not going to let it beat me, kind of thing. So then I graduated after doing like 18 months, and I worked there for a bit. And then I come back, and I was like recovered, but I still had a little bit to work on. So I ended up having like a small relapse, if you like, 6 months. And I went back to another Christian place, which wasn't as strict. And they had like farm animals and all things like that, which was really good for me. And that was, it was like this, sometimes in recovery, like, people can go to rehab and that's it, they're on that road. But I'd like sort of 90% done everything I needed to. And it weren't like I was using drugs all the time still, but I was still sort of depending on like prescriptions. And it's that behaviour, addictive behaviour, and that can go on for a long time. Like, you can be, a lot of people like will end up addicted to other things. That's even if it's like relationships. And so I got into a bad relationship and things like that. But it was my little dog that saved me. I believe that wholeheartedly. Yeah, he gives me so much. I know that's really funny, but I'm such an animal lover. I really like, I get really emotional if a dog or something isn't looked after. It really affects me. And it was just great getting my little dog. He would just give me purpose, and I was going to meetings, and I got it for myself, because it can be easier as well if you're in an environment where it's kind of easier for you. It's when you come out and live in the world and you've got everyday stresses and stuff. It's learning how to be strong at those times, So I thank God that I'm clean today, and I can use my experiences, to maybe put something back into other people now, because I do spend time getting upset about what I've put my family through. And I do have regrets. I have a lot of regrets, I regret that I never had a family and never got married and all those sort of things. But I would just be really depressed all the time if I thought like that. So you've got to try and make most of what you've got, And that's why I really enjoy arts and crafts and studying. And I think that I see now, like, I enjoy being clean, whereas before I didn't know how to be clean. I just didn't know how, I didn't have the skills. I thought life was boring without drugs. That's how ridiculous I used to think. But no, it fears me now if I think about addiction and that, and I see people, and it makes me really sad, So yeah, it's not easy being clean. It's really not. Like, I spoke to you before about work and that, like, because I've had such a colourful past, I've been to prison as well, that can just write me off for employers, you know. My credit history is not good. It's like having to start again, you know, and you've just got to build up from what you've got. But you do come across people that just think still, even if you're clean, that you're that same person. And it takes a lot of time for your family and friends to trust you. That my mum and dad will never 100% trust me. And I can't blame them because I've let them down so many times. So you've got to just try and think of it from their point of view a bit, like how scared they are. That's why, you know. So there are challenges. Your health can be long-term affected, like my mental health I still suffer with a bit. But then it can be like that you live in like that, why have I not done this before? But at the end of the day, at least you've done it. Do you know what I mean? Like some people never get to be clean. So there's a great support of people in the recovery world as well. So there are a lot of people that really root for you to be clean, you know, so that's really good. So if you want to get support, there would be your GP. There's people online that you could contact, like, and there's a lot of you'd normally have like a drug and alcohol service in your area, and usually you can self-refer to them. And there are like places that you can phone up and they will advise you. So if you want to get clean, and say you was addicted to heroin, you may have to go on a methadone or a Subutex script, and that will keep you well until you can reduce off that. Things like that are in place. There's like drug counsellors and that, they will help you through your recovery as well. And then there's like NA and AA. So, and there's other types of sort of AA as well. There's like SMART is a thing that we've got in our area. Places like that, they're the sort of same principle where you go to meetings and you're like with a community of people. And then you've got rehabs, which are usually residential. I've had counselling, and that can be good and bad. If you've not got the right therapist, it can sometimes leave you feeling a bit like, well, I don't feel I got much out of that. But for me, I do have faith. Like, I've been to a Christian rehab. I'm not religious and I don't, you know, but that's my form of support when I feel like, you know, I'm struggling. And it's good to have like a belief or something in place, even if it, like in NA, you have a sponsor, so you've always got that person to talk to if you're struggling and stuff. But there's loads of types of ways. It just depends. Like some people might go into like the extreme sports or something like that, or become a DJ, and that's their passion then. So there's lots of things that they're out there for people if they didn't agree with one type of recovery. Yeah, I do art all of the time. That's my go-to thing. I love anything arts and crafts because I just love getting into something. I love being creative and I'm not thinking about anything else when I'm doing that. And I've got friends from when I was in rehab that are Christians that, you know, and I'll sometimes do maybe read something out the Bible for strength. And sometimes I might just go and have a chat with my sister or go and see my nephew for an hour, and that will make me feel good, you know.
But it will, would you say that your dog Charlie is that?
Oh yeah, look, every time I mention Charlie, I smile, don't I? Because I just like, look, he's my boy, he is. Yeah, he like, it's weird because I've got like my mum's dog's with me most of the time as well. But if I'm at the beach and we're with the dogs, that's like my favourite thing in the world to do. And if you'd have said that to me like 20 years ago, I'd have been like, that's boring, that, you know. But that's when I get like real joy. It's not something I've had to take to try and make me feel that, you know. So it can be an animal sometimes. It can be something that you feel like loves you unconditionally, you know. Overcome drug addiction for a young person. My first port of call would be to find someone somewhere that you can go to talk to. It might be that your GP, it might be your nurse at school, it might be a teacher. Just find that person that you can relate to and you think that I can talk to them about what's really going on. And if you do talk to someone, try and be honest, because most of the time, like, we're just telling them bits because we're a bit like ashamed to say what really is going on and that. So I think once you find that first person and you just say like, this is where I want to be, but I'm not there now, you can work together on finding out how to get to that place. So that might mean a rehab, but it might just mean counselling. Well, you know, it might mean going to meetings. It's what works for you. So I would just say explore the options, and if you find that person that you can talk to, you've got someone to walk you through it. So don't feel like you're on your own with it. I think that helps anyway. Yes, it's a hard one that for friends and family. I think they go through it just as much, if not more. I really feel for like some of the mums and that I've spoke to. My heart breaks for them, you know. And I try really to look at it from their perspective now. I think there are support groups as well for people, like for friends and families. They've got like specific for their needs. So that would be something that they might consider. It's so hard because like some people say tough love and some will say don't ever give up on your child, you know. But just to try and be there as much as you can without being kind of taken advantage of, because an addict will be really manipulating and get what they can. So yeah, be strict with them and don't like accept their behaviour. You got to kind of love them and not love what they do, if you know what I mean. But get support as well, because you need it as much as them, like you're going through it. So I do think like that's one thing I've always wanted to sort of set up more support groups for families and that, because they do need more support, because the support's for the addict more. It's had its ups and downs. On, you know, being clean is not always easy, but it's so much better. Like I've got relationships with my family again, and little things that you take for granted and you lose through drugs. You know, like it kind of makes me a bit emotional because like my family is so supportive of me and they've never given up on me, and I am so fortunate for that. But I never thought like that. Like, you become really selfish. So you do take for granted really little things, and you start realising like there are things out there that you've kind of like been under your nose and you've never appreciated before. Just even a sunny day and that, you know, like now I can like look at sort of scenery. I feel a bit like my mum and dad and be like, I really appreciate that, you know. But it is about getting family and friends back and achieving what you want to achieve, and don't leave it as late as me. Like, get what you can out of life while you can, you know. That's one thing, like, I don't know, I know with age you get a bit wiser to things, but yeah, like that, I am, what's the word, doing everything I can to get into a career again. Like, I've had careers, but I'm studying and I'm training at different sort of subjects, like I'm doing counselling and that now. So I've still got time, you know, like, luckily, sort of, it's never too late. So I think you got to kind of carry that attitude a bit, that it is never too late. And there's still, you know, opportunities out there. Yeah, it's not always easy, but the good is far much, you know, there's far much more good in recovery than there is harder things, because the rewards, it's like someone said to me once, you do good things and good things happen. Like, when you do bad, even if it's like you don't think it's that bad, like, everything else will topple. Like, your car will start failing, and you know, and you just think, why is all this? And it's just like a ripple effect of like your sort of behaviour. So it's kind of like what you reap, you sow. Like, is that what you sow, you reap? That's what I meant. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
You can always contact someone. You can contact me. I'm always available. You can, you know, go to someone that will listen. If you're someone that has family and friends, I would just say, like, try and look behind why they do what they do, and not just think of them as like being a bad person and you know, going against what they should be, because there might be real, like, reasons behind that. And if you are the person that is taking the drugs, then try and work out why you are, you know, and get to the root of that. And sometimes that might be what it takes. Like, you have an issue in your life that you need to deal with, and there might be counselling or something out there that can help you deal with that. So yeah, there's usually like reasons, isn't there, behind why people do anything. It might just be that you're just being a rebel and that you're out to have a good time, and if that's the case, like, look at safety. And if you've become addicted from being, you know, that way, then there's still support for you. It doesn't mean that because you haven't had a bad thing in your life, like, I've never really had anything bad happen to me, but like, now I can kind of see maybe why I did what I did. But don't give up. That's what I'd say. Just never give up. Keep trying. You'll get there in the end.